the moratorium on evictions and foreclosures only applies to Fannie and Freddie backed loans. So I want you to think about this on how this all works. Okay? And I'll get into more detail in a second. If you have a Fannie and Freddie backed mortgage, the government, you're going to be able to stay in your house through the end of the year through executive order, because Fannie and Freddie are owned by the government. It is what it is. Same thing if you're a renter or a homeowner. If the person who owns the property has a Fannie or Freddie backed mortgage, they passed an executive order, no foreclosures. Okay, that's great. But that's ridiculous because it is not solving any type of problem whatsoever. Majority of rental properties in this country, if you live in a single family unit, it's a different story because that's not the issue that I'm getting at. But anybody who lives in a large apartment building or lives in a apartment development, there's no way that property owner has a Fannie or Freddie Mae back loan. There's no way because of the lending limits. Okay, so those properties are owned outside of the Fannie and Freddie Mac system. Okay, I apologize for the dogs. I'm outside. Your listeners are gonna have to deal with it. So because of that, foreclosures and evictions are going to be allowed to proceed on any property in which Fannie and Freddie do not hold the mortgage. Now, the private lenders basically gave people deferrals and whatnot that almost uniformly ended at the end of August. Between August and September, those deferrals and all of that just ended across the board for property owners. So what happens is you own a property where there's 100 units. All of those renters are at risk. All of them, unless the state has done something. And by the way, I think if the state has tried to do something, it's probably unconstitutional, and the landlords are gonna try to overturn it and evict the tenants that aren't paying, because they have to pay their mortgage and they have to pay their bondholders. So all of these evictions are quite literally coming to a head in the next 15 weeks. And so I want you to think about it this way. Say you had an eviction moratorium that ended on August 31st, which most of them did. The landlord on September 2nd or 1st is filing that eviction paperwork with the courts. I've asked my people on Twitter to do research and just find out how many eviction proceedings have been filed nationwide. No one's got back to me. Maybe someone listening to this, they'll go do it. But I guarantee you it's enormous. And so what happens is all of those petitions for eviction are filed September 2nd, September 3rd, September 4th, September 5th, whatever the case may be. The renters, they have 30 days to pay back rent. You're not allowed to evict people in most states for 30 days for not paying rent. So what happens is 30 days from September 2nd is October 2nd. They haven't still paid their rent. That landlord's going to go to court. They're going to go seek a judgment against the renter, and then they're going to try to physically remove him within 14 days. So what ends up happening here is between now and probably October 15th, you're going to have a large wave of renters who are evicted from their homes. No one's talking about it. No one understands it. And if they do, they're just sweeping it under the rug. And I'm praying that Congress passes stimulus sometime in the next 5 to 10 days, because after that point, it's going to be too late for them to get the money in order to pay their landlords before they're physically removed from the property. So we're really under a time crunch as relates to stimulus. And quite frankly, I think that in and of itself, I would expect in the next 2 to 3 days that the media starts harping on that issue, because if you have a brain and understand the law in any capacity, you understand that this is coming. And I'm praying that the media starts ramping up the pressure on Congress to actually pass this bill. Because if they do not only you're going to see the shit that's going on in the stock market, which I'm not an expert on, and I don't care. It's just going to keep going down until they pass it, because it is what it is, because it's a fake Ponzi scheme. But you're going to have real pain for Americans if they don't have this money, because they're not going to be able to buy food, and they're not going to be able to pay rent. And they quite literally are going to get evicted from their homes. And that's going to lead to, I don't even want to know what type of chaos over the next 4 to 6 weeks if you have a mass eviction thing going on in multiple states nationally. Never mind the fact that half of the Democratic states are quite literally fundamentally bankrupt and can't make their payrolls. So something's got to give here. I mean, I know that it's politics. I know that it's hardball. And I get it all. But if they don't do something and they dig their heels in because of XYZ, it's just going to devastate the people. It's going to devastate the consumer, which is going to weigh on small business. It's going to weigh on big business. And it's going to weigh on everybody if they don't figure out how to get money into people's hands. There are two things that in this world, at the end of the day, people care about. One is housing. One is food. If both of those are in jeopardy because you have food prices rising and you can't pay your rent, bad things happen. And we're getting real close to that point.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.